Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matt, and I'm here with Venush. And I don't think anyone still has any idea when the NBA season is going to start. It's been rumored that December 22nd is the date that the league wants, but the players won't agree on that. It seems like it might get pushed to Martin Luther King Day, but in any event, it looks like it's going to be shorter than we initially feared. So that's good for us, at least. We're
Yeah,
going to be getting basketball sooner than we thought. One thing we do know for sure is that there's going to be at least one pretty interesting trade, I think, before the season starts. I don't know how many, but I think we're pretty much guaranteed to get at least a couple of good trades. So today we're just going to go through a bunch of trades that we thought up, put into the trade machine. These obviously all work, and we think these would both help. All these trades would help both teams and would make the league a lot more interesting next year. So let's just get right into it. So first, I think the team that is the most interesting on the trade market this year is the Warriors because they're in one of the most unique positions kind of ever because they're coming off of finals and then being the worst team in the league, one of the worst teams in the league. They have the second overall pick, but everyone thinks they're a finals contender next year. So there's a million moves they can make. They have the contracts. So they're just in a really interesting position. So who says no to this trade? Andrew Wiggins and the second overall pick, along with Deontay Burton. They would have to drop
wave him. Yeah,
waive Deontay Burton. The Thunder would, and the Warriors would get from the Thunder Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams, a 2020 first round pick, which is via Denver from the Thunder, and then as many second round picks as would be necessary to complete the trade.
yeah. This is a pretty interesting trade because the Warriors get their center in Steven Adams. They
Yeah,
get an incredible sixth man to help Steph Curry with Dennis Schroeder, and then they get a pick, which they could maybe get a wing, like a wing that could start for them, who could just hit threes and rotate and do all the little dirty work. And this trade just makes them, in my opinion, title favorites, like right off the bat.
yeah. So obviously they're going. This is a win now move. Obviously, giving up the second overall pick for a couple of really good win now players, getting their center, like you said, in Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, and getting a Denver, the first round pick via Denver, which is going to be obviously late first round. But like we went over in our episode last week, there are actually a lot of good role player at the end of the first round, especially wings. So I do agree that this would probably be the couple of missing pieces that they need to become a title contender. And then for the Thunder side, I mean, you get the second overall pick, and you're
Yeah,
giving up two expiring contracts, which you're probably 100% not bringing back anyway.
yeah.
And then you take a flyer on Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah,
Like I think
this is instant accept for the Thunder. Thunder like
instant, instant.
Warriors called them with this, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it. Like
Yeah,
it's done, done
mail it in
deal."
right now. Yeah,
Yeah. The question is the Thunder willing to give up another pick? Like, because they have so much from the Rockets, they have so much from the Clippers. Are they willing to give up another pick for this draft? Because people have to realize this draft is like it's not the normal typical value a second round pick. Like this isn't John Morant that they're trading, right?
yeah,
This is LaMelo Ball, which is a much different traits value, you know? So people are obviously going to overvalue that second round pick because that second pick, because it's going to be John Morant and people like John Morant that's in their mind.
yeah,
But a lot of teams aren't high on LaMelo. A lot of teams aren't high on Wiseman. So getting two players that could just make you title favorites and still getting picks, second rounders to move on to make sure your team's always flexible and always contending for the future. It's a pretty fair deal, but the question is, do the Thunder need to give up one more first?
yeah. That's the question for sure. I think, but the Thunder are in one of the best positions in terms of trade assets in the league. Just because you
Mm-hmm.
said they have so many picks from those trades that they made last offseason. So I think this is a win-win for both sides. But we have another trade that the Warriors could pull off if they wanted to go a different direction.
Yeah, that's Clint Capella and the sixth pick for the second pick.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, this is kind of an overvalue of the second pick because you're moving down four slots, but you're picking up Clint Capella with it. And the reason the Hawks do this is if they're just high on Wiseman, if they just think he could be a DeAndre Ayton, a Joel Embiid type player, they pull this off. And if they don't think that's going to happen, they just probably select another wing to come off their bench with the sixth pick and keep Capella, or they even select Onik Okwonga to kind of replace Capella if he leaves in free agency or if his injuries catch up with him. So it's going to be an interesting thing. It just depends on how the Hawks view Wiseman.
Yeah, so this would basically be the Hawks, like you said, being super high on Wiseman and potentially taking a chance at putting together the best point guard center combo in the league.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the most exciting young cores in the league, which they already have. Uh, and then for the Warriors, they get the center that fits perfectly into their team, and they still keep a top 6 pick, able to draft a player that can help them win right now. Like you said, the worst isn't instant except for the Warriors, but for the Hawks, trading Clint Capella, who hasn't even played a game for them yet, is probably not going to happen. But it honestly, it depends. Like you said, so many opinions vary on Wiseman and LaMelo Ball throughout the league, and if some teams are high on Wiseman, if the Hawks are one of them, I can see this happening.
Yeah, the reason I like this because I'm high on Wiseman is because now you have a young point guard, Trae Young. You have a young shooting guard, Kevin Herter. You have a young small forward, DeAndre Hunter. You have a young power forward, John Collins. You have a young center in
Yeah,
Wiseman, and then you have a
yeah,
young sixth man in Cam Reddish.
yeah,
Like that six could be together for 10 years and win
yeah,
3 championships, and like they could dominate the league. And it's like the big six. It's like remember the Fab Five back in the day with NCAA. This could be like the big six in the NBA, and it could be a worth a risk. It's just is the Hawks front office as high as Wiseman as we were?
yeah. So and also the Hawks, even though they're not going to make any noise in the playoffs, they're probably looking at a playoff spot next season in the
Yeah,
East. Um, and if you just swap out Capella for a Wiseman, their chances probably go a little bit lower, just because obviously Capella's a veteran and makes that defense instantly a lot better.
yeah.
But long term, I think this is probably the move long term for them.
And something that's underrated that people aren't bringing up is Capella's on a 3 year deal. So next offseason, if they get Wiseman, that's like $10 million they're saving,
Yeah,
which is potentially two like superstars. So now you name those 6 players that I named, and you add a Kawhi Leonard, and you add another superstar, and we're talking about a dynasty here. We're talking about multiple championships,
yeah,
like three peats, four peats. Like we're talking about a crazy team. So if the Hawks pull this off, like the cap space, and if they sign a free agent, like oh man, this Atlanta Hawk team could be crazy.
yeah, yeah. This would be a really interesting trade, and honestly, I kind of hope it happens because I think seeing Trae Young with John Collins and Wiseman would be kind of the one of the most exciting young trios, just trios period in the league.
Yeah, and people are underestimating how much of a attraction they're going to be in the free agency
Yeah, yeah,
because they suck right now. But people have to remember Trey Young averaged 29 and 9,
yeah.
and he's on a rookie deal. So you add two, he had two
And
maxes next to him.
at the same time, while young Collins, uh, Herter, Hunter, Reddish, Wiseman is a really good young core. Trae Young was the only ball dominant player out of all those players,
Yeah,
right? So you could easily add another ball dominant high level free agent to that and not really screw anything up.
yeah, and it's like they don't even need to add two, which they can. They could just
Yeah,
add one big free agent,
yeah.
and in my opinion, they become like a title favorite. Like that's how good this young core is.
Within a couple of years, I can definitely see that a title
Yeah,
favorite. Yeah. Okay, so outside of the Warriors, the the trades that everyone is kind of suggesting right now and is on everyone's mind is Chris Paul, because Chris Paul has 2 years left on that deal. Does not look nearly as ugly as it did when he originally signed it. And I can name 5 teams off the top of my head who would become instant title favorites if they got Chris Paul. Uh, and so I think one trade that actually could happen is Chris Paul to the Lakers, which was shot down in the past. It could finally
yeah,
happen now. So basically, it's kind of hard to gauge Chris Paul's value in the league just because of that contract and everything like that. But I think this trade is pretty fair. So Chris Paul to the Lakers in exchange for Danny Green, KCP, and Kyle Kuzma. Pretty basic trade.
yeah.
it could be supplemented with second round picks on either side to get it done, but that's pretty
Mhm.
much the base of the trade.
Yeah, I also think people gotta realize that this pandemic has impacted owners. Yes, they are billionaires, but they're still like they're still money savvy, and obviously the pandemic impacted them. And if you want to get rid of Chris Paul's $41 million and only get back around 18 million, so you save 13, and you lose Danny Lagari's 22, you could get right under that salary tax, and you could be good. And Danny Green's a free agent, so his 15's coming off the book too.
Yeah,
So this is a cap move for the Thunder.
yeah, yeah,
The only young player is Kyle Kuzma, who's not bad. He just won a championship.
yeah,
He knows how to play his role. Can he play it in OKC? Because he's very popular on social media. He's very LA to
yeah.
describe him. So does he want to play in Thunder? Will he accept the same like background role with the Thunder? That's an issue, but this is just a cap dump. And yeah, if they want to get rid of him, this is an easy cap dump for them.
It's a cap dump, and a team that what is already looking like the most flexible, one of the most flexible teams in the league would become even more flexible because pretty much other than Shea, did they even like they wouldn't have pretty much anyone on the roster past next year, past this coming
No,
season, right?
yeah,
So they pretty much have all the flexibility in the world, a million draft picks, could sign whoever they want, and could trade for whoever they want, really, with all those picks. And yeah. So that's the thing. Do they want to? It's going to depend on whether or not there are better trades out there because there are going to be 3 or 4 teams that can put together decent looking packages. None of them are going to be insanely good looking. And another one is to the Bucks.
yeah, to the Bucks. So the Bucks win could be Bledsoe, obviously, George Hill, and then Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah,
And then
DiVincenzo.
depending if that's enough or not, they could add in the 2020 Pacers first round pick. And I think the Thunder instantly accept that because you get another quality starter back in Bledsoe. You get a good young player in Dante DiVincenzo. You get a pick, and then you get a solid veteran who could be moved on later for George Hill. It's just like, do the Bucks think they could get someone else? Like, are they more high on Victor Oladipo, which we
Mm-hmm.
hear rumors of?
Yeah,
And like, I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, they're the Milwaukee Bucks. They're not the Los Angeles Lakers. Them
yeah.
paying 40 million to Chris Paul, 50 million to Giannis, and 30 million to Chris Middleton is all their cap, and they're gonna have to go into luxury tax. Are they willing to do that? Because we know the Lakers are. We just don't know if the Bucks are.
See, the thing is, the Thunder insta accept that Milwaukee trade. I'm not so sure because I think I don't know if I want Eric
Really?
Bledsoe on my team. Like honestly, his contract is the same number of years as Chris Paul's contract. It's not. It's lower, but it's not a. It's still a pretty decently sized contract. And
16 million a year.
yeah, 16 million a year. I don't know. I don't know if I want him on my want Eric Bledsoe on my team. I'm not sure. Like what we've seen from him in the playoffs recently, he looks good in the regular season, but
Yeah.
he hurts your team in the playoffs. That's just true.
hmm He hurts your team as the third player. But if he goes to some team where his only job is to defend and do no playmaking, he'll do a really good job. And I think people are underestimating how good his contract is because he's making $3 million more than Patrick Beverly.
Mm,
And he's a
yeah,
million times better than Patrick Beverly. Like, he is what Patrick Beverly wishes he was. So, and honestly, I can see that trade happening. I can see, like, if the Thunder get Bledsoe, I could see them flipping him to the Clippers for, hey, we'll take on Patrick Beverly's contract, but you have to give us your young player, Landry Shamet. And you could have your point guard who facilitates a little bit, who's still an all NBA second team defender.
yeah.
And I think the Clippers accept that too, because we know Kawhi's been adamant
I
on
think
getting
so
a
too.
point guard.
Yeah.
So there you go. You instantly flip Bledsoe for another young player in Landry Shamet, who's perfect for today's NBA.
And you get DiVincenzo from the Bucks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So now
George Hill, really solid.
You have
You know.
DiVincenzo starting at the two with Shea sliding to the one. Then you have Landry Shamet coming off the bench as a sniper. You
Yeah.
have a nice little three guard rotation going on there, which is not obviously not as good as the current three guard rotation,
Yeah.
but is much younger and much cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. So okay, so moving on, the Sixers are another team, obviously, that a lot of people are making trades for, and rightfully so, because their roster hasn't ever looked like it really works properly together. And so, but the trades are obviously going to have to be a little complicated because of all those huge contracts they have on their roster. So I think one trade could look something like this. So this basically the 76ers would receive Eric Gordon from the Rockets, and then from the Hornets they would get Nick Batum, Cody Zeller, Terry Rozier. This is obviously a three-team trade. The Rockets get Al Horford and OKC's first round pick in this draft, and then the Hornets get Tobias Harris and then Norvel Pell from the Sixers, and then a bunch of second round picks from the Sixers as well.
Yeah, I like so basically this is two trades that the Sixers pull off where they ship Al Horford and a pick for Eric Gordon, which I think everyone agrees to because Rockets get their center
I think so.
that can actually kind of move around and shoot threes. And Sixers get someone who has shown that he could hit big shots, play good defense, and shoot the three ball, which is what they need. And then I like the Hornets aspect that you put in there too, because they get Terry Rozier and a bunch of cap filler and Nick Batum and Cody Zeller to just get out of the Tobias Harris contract.
Yeah.
And then to sweeten it for the Hornets, you gave them second round picks. And the Hornets, they don't really care about cap as much because they're not a free agent destination. And you get Tobias Harris, who's a solid veteran, to come in with with Devontae Graham, with potentially Lamelo Ball. He's just someone that can make sure there's no double teams, triple teams on those young guards, and make sure there's another scoring option to help their growth. So I like this from all three teams.
Yeah, if one team is going to be willing to take on that Harris contract, it's going to be a team like the Hornets, a team that is pretty much irrelevant, doesn't have anyone near an all-star on their roster, and he would like you said, he would just make it easier on their young guards, and he just makes them a little more interesting and gives honestly their fans something to kind of cheer for.
Yeah, and in this scenario, like they're getting rid of so much cap that's worth it
Yeah.
because they're getting rid of two expirings, which add up to 45 million in Cody Zeller and Nick Batum. They're getting rid of Terry Rozier's 18 million. Uh, Biombo's 18 million is off the books this free agency. So all those big contracts coming off the book, they just take in
Yeah.
Harris's bad contract, and they're still fine with the contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, okay, so another thing is it's kind of in the news today. It was in the news a month or two ago, but it just came up today that the Sixers are going to pursue James Harden. Uh, Daryl Morey, I guess, wants him on his team again. So what could that look like really for if the Sixers actually do decide to go after James Harden aggressively?
It has to be Ben Simmons. Like he has to be moved. Probably with Matisse Thybulle and probably with the 2020 OKC pick that they have. And then you get James Harden back. And that's an incredible pull. But man, like it's gonna be hard to get James Harden. Like I do not see the Rockets moving him at all.
I like I agree with that, and I think there's a small like a 1% chance that they would pull a trade for James Harden, but I don't think you do it when you're going to be putting Russell Westbrook and Ben Simmons on the same team. There's no way. That's impossible.
Yeah, and
Now,
Ben
if you told me
Simmons,
Embiid Harden, I'll think about it. We talked about this before on the podcast, but
mhm.
I don't know if both teams. It seems like a fair trade on paper, but I think you're right. I think the trade would have to be centered around Simmons.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Embiid doesn't have the trade value for what he's worth because
Yeah,
of his injury history. His
yeah,
injury history is so bad that he will not ever get moved for another star like James Harden. Like it is so bad. I think people forget how bad it was. Like I think people forget that he struggles to play 70 games in a season. I think people forget that he sat out his first 2 or 3 years. And
pretty
I
much. Yeah,
just yeah, I just can't see him being enough to get in another star. And people forget that he was bad this year. Like he was good in the bubble, but he did not make a single All NBA team. He didn't make an All Defensive team. Ben Simmons made the All NBA team. Joel Embiid did not. I think people forget that, and I think people forget how good Ben Simmons is during the regular season. Because in the
Yeah.
regular season, we have him in conversations for top 10 player
Yep.
in the NBA because of how good he is defensively. But man, it's going to be interesting. If the Rockets think they can make Ben Simmons the next Giannis,
Yeah. That. So you picture Simmons surrounded by a bunch of those Rockets, 3-and-D players, and is he what 85% as good as Giannis in that system? Like he he would
yeah,
look like Giannis light, if not really close to
or
what Giannis is in a system like that. But the thing is, not with Westbrook on the floor. That's just not going to happen,
yeah,
right?
and I guess people would hope that like he's better than Giannis. I guess the Rockets, at least Rockets fans, and hear me out for this. The reasoning is he's a much better passer. He could
Oh yeah,
post up.
way better.
He's more aggressive defensively. I don't know if he's better defensively, but he's more aggressive defensively. And he's quicker. He has better handles.
He
It's
does.
just he's not as strong. But the question is, can you get better role players for him? Because you still have Westbrook to trade.
Yeah,
And as much as people hate Westbrook, he's an all NBA third team player and he will fetch you good players.
yeah. So okay, so speaking of Westbrook trades, another team that kind of surprisingly to me is in the market to trade for a third star is the Brooklyn Nets,
Mhm.
and they have been linked to Russell Westbrook, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Uh, but if they did want to pull that off, I think the trade would have to look something like Westbrook and Covington to the Nets for DeAndre Jordan, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Torian Prince, and then a first round pick from yeah.
If you have Simmons on that team, I would instantly accept this.
I
Because now
agree.
you have a starting lineup of Spencer Dinwiddie at the one, Karis LeVert at the two, uh, PJ Tucker at the three, Ben Simmons at the four, and DeAndre Jordan at the five, with your sixth man being Eric Gordon and your seventh man being Torian Prince. Whew, that's a good team. That's a
That's
good team.
like that's the kind of team you need to put around Simmons. If you think Simmons can be anywhere near as good as Giannis or play like Giannis, that's the kind of team he needs around him. Couple of secondary ball handlers in Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, all guys who can shoot. Like, man. And then from the net side, like how do you feel about that from the net side though?
They have the best starting five in basketball, like talent wise. I just don't know if it fits together because they
Yeah.
would have a starting five of Kyrie, Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Covington, Jared Allen.
Jeez. My
That's
God.
amazing. Like how much talent is on that team. And then people forget they still have Joe Harris off the bench.
Yeah.
They still have Rodney Kukos, who completely
Yeah.
stopped Pascal Siakam. Like they have a
Yeah.
great
In the first
bench.
round.
Yeah, they don't have a great bench, but they have a decent bench.
Yeah, like you said, by far best starting five in the NBA. Even honestly, like that's even without assuming KD is 100% KD. Like if KD is 80, 85% KD, that's still the best starting five in the NBA by far, I think.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a crazy trade. So
Pick,
do you think there's another star that they could target maybe outside of Westbrook?
real quick, staying on Westbrook, do you think Kevin
Okay,
Durant would accept that though? Do you think he'd put the beef behind them?
man. I have no idea.
I
Like
don't think so.
it, they say that it like there hasn't really been much beef lately. Like they both say that
Mhm.
they moved on, but I'm not sure. I don't know if Kevin Durant would sign off on that. I really don't.
If I'm Kyrie Irving and all I know about Kyrie Irving is when this trade happens for the next whole season,
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of the time in Brooklyn, everyone's going to be talking about the reuniting of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
No one is going to be talking about Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving hates not being in the news. He loves being in the media. Like he's always in the media for
as much as he
some.
says he doesn't, he
Yeah,
loves it. Yeah,
he's been in the media for being injured compared to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's a better player, won championships, better in the all-time rankings,
Yeah.
and we haven't heard of him in the media since he's been injured at all.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving has been
Yeah.
consistently in the media. So yeah,
So maybe it's Kyrie who doesn't sign off on this, and not
Kyrie Irving
KD.
vetoes this. Yeah, Kyrie
Yeah.
Irving vetoes this trade in my opinion.
Okay.
But
So
one,
if it's not Westbrook, who's another star they can get?
yeah, this has been in the rumors. I think Kyrie wants this trade to happen, and that's just DeMar DeRozan straight up for Karis LeVert and a pick.
Man. So I instantly accept that if I'm the Spurs. Instantly. I love DeMar DeRozan. I have his jersey as a Raptors fan, but he's on the last year of his deal, making 30 million. You saw how far you can go with him as your best player for the
Yeah,
last couple of years, and you get 3 years of Karis LeVert at 16 million, who is not DeRozan's better than him, but I mean he's Karis LeVert's pretty good. We saw that. We saw him carry the Nets to being swept in the first round against the
yeah,
Raptors, but he
yeah.
put on a pretty good show in the first round. And I think everyone's opinion around him kind of went up a level around the league. And then from the Nets perspective, while DeRozan is not like a good shooter, obviously as we know, I think you could do some crazy offensive stuff with that team, and then you could have two of DeRozan, Kyrie, and KD on the floor at all times, which I think would be kind of insane. And all three of those guys can make a shot, get a shot, and make a shot at the end of a game. And I'm not going to say all three play defense, but that would be one of the craziest offensive teams in the league.
I would do this both ways because we know Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving need a lot of rest during the season, especially in a shortened season like this. They need a
That's a
lot of
good point.
rest.
That's a good point.
So when they're resting, you have Spencer Dinwiddie, DeMar DeRozan, Torian Prince, Joe Harris, Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan as like your 6 man rotation. And that's a good 6 man rotation,
Yeah.
man. Like that could win you games. In my opinion, that rotation, like on any given night, could be any given team. Because DeMar DeRozan, at the end of the day, he's still a 20-6 player.
Yeah.
He's not the 25-point scorer he was back in the day, but he's still 26-6.
He's probably the
And
best playmaker on that team, too.
I'll give it to Spencer Dinwiddie. He's pretty good too. But having Spencer Dinwiddie and DeMar DeRozan to step up when those two take rest, amazing. So for a regular
Yeah.
season, you
Mm-hmm.
instant accept this.
Yeah.
But it's about the playoffs. Do you want to add someone who can't shoot threes on your team in the playoffs?
Yeah, man. Like, I can see it working in the playoffs. And
Oh, I don't know about that.
if, like, hey, if he's the only guy on your team who can't shoot threes, like we saw the Spurs play him at the 4 this year in the
Mhm.
playoffs, surrounded by shooters. I mean, and Jakob Poeltl, and
Yeah,
he played well. And the Spurs, I mean, sorry, not in the playoffs. I mean, in the bubble. And the Spurs actually looked decent like that. So if you could have him pretty much playing the 4 and then surrounded by all shooters, I guess the thing is you would have a non-shooting center on the floor at the same time, so the spacing probably would definitely suffer in the playoffs. But I mean, some like with a coach like Steve Nash, obviously great offensive mind, and
yeah,
then adding Mike D'Antoni, I think it'd be so cool to see some of the offensive stuff they were able to do with that team.
man. I would rather just get Drew Holiday. I think you get him for the same exact deal with Karis LeVert and the 19th pick. I think you get him for the same exact deal, and I think he's so much better with 2 stars. He's obviously not going to be as good when they
Yeah,
rest because DeMar DeRozan is used to being a first option.
yeah.
Drew Holiday sucks as a first option, but I'd rather just get Drew Holiday, and I think
Drew
Drew
Holiday
Holiday,
fits better,
and
but
I think he plays better defense on big players. Like people are going to say, yeah, we're getting DeMar DeRozan to play the 4, sometimes guard forwards, because we have Spencer
yeah,
Dinwiddie who's going to come in at the 2. But man, I'd honestly rather have Drew Holiday guarding power forwards than DeMar DeRozan. Like he sucks defensively. So yeah, I'm if Drew Holiday gets moved, if Victor Oladipo gets moved, Zach LaVine trade gets vetoed, and the bubble say no. If like all these people aren't available,
yeah.
then yeah, throw DeMar DeRozan a chance. But until DeMar DeRozan, yeah, he's just not going to be on any good teams, man. He can't shoot threes.
I wouldn't like I thought he was going to get traded. I think he's going to get traded, or I think there's a chance he gets traded this offseason. I don't know if it's going to be to the Nets. I when that rumor came up that the Nets and even the Bucks were interested in DeRozan, I was kind of surprised by that.
Mhm.
I do think that he is going to get traded. Um, sorry, I do think he could get traded, and I think the Spurs want to trade him. And he's a better player than I think he has a reputation for. He used to be probably overrated, but he's probably a little bit underrated now. He, like you said, he's still 26, really good playmaker, plays no defense, doesn't shoot threes. But if you're a team that is kind of irrelevant or is looking to make the playoffs for the first time in a while, like maybe the Hawks,
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, on a team like the Hawks, I would like him because John Collins could play the five and he could shoot threes.
Yeah,
And Trey Young's such a good 3-point shooter that he could give you more space, like beyond the
yeah,
3-point line. But it's tough, man. When you can't shoot threes and you're a starter, like can on both the teams that made the finals, every single starter could shoot threes.
yeah,
So like DeMar DeRozan just doesn't fit today's NBA. And when he accepts a bench role, he will be the best six man in the league.
yeah.
And
Oh,
he
by
will be
far.
super valuable.
It has his career got to that point yet, though? Does he need to accept the bench role?
No, he has too much of an ego, and I think at least, and he's not going to accept that bench role. But
Yeah,
the second he does, he's amazing. But until he doesn't, like he becomes the best bench player of all time
yeah.
to like what he is right now, an average starter who's not a championship level starter.
Wow. But I kind of agree. But I think I would love him to get traded to a team like the Hawks. Just to,
Hmm.
I think that'd be really interesting. Maybe not the Nets. Nets are probably not the best fit for him. But yeah.
Yeah.
So another team that kind of needs to make a move is the Celtics. They need a big man, obviously, and I think a big man that they could realistically target is Nick Vucevic. So the trade would look something like this. So they get Vucevic and Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is a pretty good player too, from obviously the Magic. And this is a three-team trade. So the Magic would be receiving from obviously it would need to be Gordon Hayward from the Celtics, uh, and then they would get first round number 14th pick from the Celtics this year, and then uh, Milwaukee's pick in the first round this year, which the Celtics have, and then the third team in the trade is the Timberwolves. Timberwolves are getting Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac from the Magic, and a first round another pick from the Celtics. And then James Johnson and Jared Culver are going to the Magic. Kind of a complicated trade, but basically
And the
it's
first round and the first
yeah,
overall
sorry.
pick.
Basically the players being moved are Celtics get Vucevic, Ross, Magic get Gordon Hayward and Jared Culver with James Johnson as filler, and the Wolves get Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah, people are going to be like, no way the Celtics give up 3 picks. I say, why not? Like,
I
they're trying to
agree.
win a championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they trying to build for the future? They could not, like, let's say one of these picks, like the 14th or the 20th or the 30th, become a superstar. Do they have cap space to sign him?
No.
No, they don't.
No.
So what they're going to do is they want to win a championship. They have the best starting five in the NBA with Kemba, Smart, Jalen Brown, Tatum, Vucevic,
Yeah.
Terrence Ross as your sixth man. Pretty good. Like people underestimate that Vucevic could shoot threes. Like he's so good. Like people underestimate how good he is. And I think this is a great deal for the Celtics. Like in my opinion, they're championship favorites. They have the best offense in the league, contending with the Mavs, in my opinion, with this trade. The question is, what do you think about Vucevic's defense?
Yeah. So Vucevic, he catches a lot of hate um, because we see him get shut down in the playoffs. Like Marc Gasol shut him down in the playoffs 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And he doesn't look like a team. He doesn't look like a player who can carry your offense, which is true. He's not a player who can carry your offense in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But on the Celtics, he would be behind Kemba, behind Tatum, behind Jalen Brown. Maybe not behind, probably behind, close to Jalen Brown, depending on the matchup, the team they're playing. So he'd be the third or fourth option, which having Nick Vucevic as your third or fourth option is insane. By far the best offense in the league, or maybe contending for the best offense in the league, like you said.
Yeah.
Defense is another question, but the Celtics would still have those other bigs on the bench like Daniel Tice, Rob Williams, Grant Williams, who you could bring out depending on the matchup and kind of just use Vucevic as a pure offensive player. And when there's a tough matchup, maybe bring out another one of those guys. I love it. I love it for the Celtics. And
Mhm.
then on the Magic side, I think
Amazing, I think,
pretty
in my
amazing
opinion.
because you
Yeah,
get 3 first-round picks. Um, one of those picks being the first overall pick, obviously from the Timberwolves,
yeah,
and you get Jared Culver, and then you get Gordon Hayward and James Johnson are expirings just to make the deal work. And then for the Timberwolves side, I kind of love this too. You're giving up the first overall pick, but you're getting Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac, who I both really like.
and a
I don't know,
20th pick.
and the 20th
Like,
pick. I kind of love this.
yeah, basically the Magic love this trade because they get Fultz, Culver, Mo Bamba, number 1, number 14, number 15 they already have, and number
Yep.
30. That's 7 young players they could build around, and they have great cap flexibility for the future, and they own all of their picks for the future. They basically become a very young, interesting team with championship potential if all these players become like decent players, which is something they don't have right now. They're never going to win a championship with this core. The Timberwolves, they run a lineup of D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, John Isaac, Aaron Gordon, Karl Anthony Towns. Hooey.
That's crazy.
Like that might be one of our favorite teams just because we like each of those players individually and we want to see them together. The problem is John Isaac is sitting out this whole year because of the injury. So that's why his value is a little lowered and this trade works because if he played and he was healthy, this trade probably doesn't go through. Magic probably just keep him. But since he's been injured 2 years in a row now with season-ending injuries and he's missing all of next season, the Magic have the opportunity to get the first round pick. They jump on it, and the Timberwolves take a chance on Aaron Gordon and Isaac working out with their young duo, providing that defense which is much needed. Man, like all 3 teams, I think win this trade, and it has to go down. Like I wish this trade happens.
Yeah, and like you said, Isaac is kind of a risk. Um, but you just think about that defense. So and it's not like Isaac and Aaron Gordon are old either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're young.
Perfectly lines up with their timeline as a team. So would you rather have Russell, Anthony Edwards, Towns, or would you rather have Russell Towns with two of the best defensive fours/threes in the league, who are both not the greatest offensive players in the world, but have a lot of offensive promise and have shown a lot in their few years in the NBA. Like you said, if Isaac is healthy, I love that trade for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but his value is lowered, which is why it's able to go through.
Yeah,
And yeah, I love this trade. Like I said,
yeah, and people have to realize Isaac and Aaron Gordon made up for Nikola Vucevic, who's a horrible defender. Conley Towns is going to be so happy playing with these 2 guys.
yeah,
Like Isaac's going to switch on the centers and be like, "Yo, I'll guard him these couple
yeah,
positions, get Conley Towns a couple rests. Aaron Gordon will switch onto them, give Conley Towns his rest." Like if Conley Towns was a GM, he's making this trade happen because this is the
yeah,
help he needs, and I just have to see this happen. I hope the Magic are willing to blow it up because there's been rumors of them getting DeRozan and kind of sticking around that 6th seed,
yeah,
but they could change the NBA with this trade and similar trades, and I hope they just bounce on it.
yeah. So for the last however many years, the Magic have had way too many power forwards and centers, and they're basically just getting rid of all of them
Yeah,
and just completely rebuilding.
yeah,
But you get 2 lottery picks this year and Jared Culver, who was a very very high pick last year. I say yes from all 3 teams.
yeah. And another rumor, because Gordon Hayward probably doesn't play with the Magic, he's been rumored that the Trailblazers have been interested in him. So maybe the Trailblazers, instead of moving Terrence Ross, they keep Terrence Ross. And they kind of let Trevor Ariza fill the cap, and then they get Zach Collins and maybe a pick from the 76ers, the Trailblazers. And how do you like that fit with Gordon Hayward on the Trailblazers?
I love it. I honestly kind like that's the kind of player that they needed on that. Well, the main need that the Blazers had, as we saw in the playoffs, is a wing defender. Hayward isn't that at this point, but to have another guy who you could give the ball, a bigger guy, uh, to relieve some of the ball handling pressure off of the two guards, basically be just like a better version of what Melo was for them. I kind of love it for them. And like you said, Celtics get Vucevic, which we already said we love, and then 3 first-round picks to the Magic, one of them being the number 14 pick in this year's draft,
Hmm.
and then you get Zach Collins. I like it. I like it for the Magic. And now the thing is, the Magic are picking up another power forward slash center.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, the thing about the Magic is they have so much flexibility
yeah,
that I think they just get talent in and then sort it out later. They just get as much young talent as they can. And man, like 3 picks for Vucevic would be amazing. Gordon Hayward on the Trailblazers. We have a starting lineup of Dame, CJ, Gordon Hayward, who we signed Melo at the 4,
yeah,
and Nurkic at the 5.
Nurkic, pretty good offensively.
That's a big improvement in my opinion. And you're getting rid of Trevor Ariza, who didn't come to the bubble with you. A first round pick who hasn't played on your team yet.
Yeah,
And the Zach Collins, who was injured. So you're not losing that much.
just adding Gordon Hayward to the team that they already had in the
Yeah,
playoffs. Yeah,
I like it. I
I
like it
like
a
it.
lot.
Maybe that's worth
Yeah.
1 or 2 wins against the Lakers in the first round. You never
Yeah,
know.
maybe they could push. Hey, maybe they could push to 7, you know? You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Okay, so another player, like we kind of talked about already, that's in the trade rumors is Victor Oladipo, and I think by far the best fit for him is Dallas. So who says no to this? Mavericks get Oladipo in return for Seth Curry, Maxi Kleber, and their first round pick this year.
That's a great trade for the Mavericks because even if Victor Oladipo doesn't resign, they just cleared $15 million off the books.
Yeah,
So that just opens up even more space to sign a free agency. And Victor Oladipo's value is going to be higher than what people have seen because he just had a horrible season. And people are going to be like, why is his trade value so high? Like, why is he getting 2 solid players and a pick? And people have to understand he's expiring. So
yeah,
even if
that's the
he
thing.
sucks, his money's off the books. You have Luca on a rookie deal. You have KP on a max. You sign another max player, and you have a big 3 again without Victor
Yeah,
Oladipo.
yeah,
So this is a no-brainer for the Mavericks, and for the Pacers, I think this is a no-brainer as well. It's just that if you're playing Maxi Kleber at the power forward spot, which he's a good power forward in my opinion, you just have to move Miles Turner. Like he
yeah,
just has to be gone.
yeah. You have to,
Yeah,
and like you said, Oladipo's an expiring, and this is instead of losing him for nothing, you get a first round pick. You get 2 really solid players who were
yeah.
like two of two of Dallas's best players outside of Luka and KP in the playoffs last year, um, or this past season. Uh, yeah, but like you said, you have to move off Miles Turner if that's the case. So what's a possible trade that they could do for that?
So the most simple Miles Turner trade. I know we had a lot of complicated ones with picks flying,
Yeah, yeah,
three
yeah.
teams, like 7 players getting moved. It's just a 1-for-1. Get Drew Holiday, complete the Holiday Bro trios,
Oh yeah,
and give Miles Turner to the Pelicans. You know, the perfect Zion complement. And I can't see why this trade already hasn't happened because it makes too much sense to not happen.
it does. So Miles Turner, like you said, perfect Zion fit. He is like a true 7 footer, maybe a little under, but great. One of the best rim protectors in the league. Really has shown the ability to shoot threes. He can play in the like pick and roll offense, all that stuff. Rim runner, anchor your defense, which they really need because they didn't have a. And to have him as your starting center and let Jackson Hayes develop
Mm-hmm.
as that backup center, I think is huge. And then complete the Holiday Bros
Yeah.
trio on the Pacers. Just have another guy you can put beside Malcolm Brogdon, another combo guard, another guy who can run the offense. Obviously, really amazing defender. I just kind of love this all around. And obviously, like, not only are you getting Drew Holiday, you're making your team fit so much better because Sabonis gets to play the 5 where he belongs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Maxi Kleber playing the 4 like we just because they just
Yeah.
did that trade with Dallas.
Yeah. And this team, like the Pacers, I don't know if they increased their like potential with this trade, but I think they fit the player that they're building around. Because I
Yeah,
think people have to realize this isn't Victor Oladipo's team anymore. It's Sabonis' team.
yeah,
He took the reins from him. So he took the reins, and it's his team. And you just want to build around him. And Vic Drew Holiday paired alongside a Malcolm Brogdon, paired alongside a Kleber and a TJ Warren. Like these are players that fit Sabonis so well. And I think they could still keep their top four seed in the East if both these trades go down.
yeah, probably. And even if you get a little bit worse, I don't think you get worse, but even if you do, what needs to happen now is that you need to see how good your team can be with Sabonis as the best player and the anchor of the offense. Like you need to see what that looks like. We can't have that logjam at center anymore.
Yeah.
He needs to be playing the five, surrounded by guys who can shoot and defend, and everything like that. And Drew Holiday's that exact kind of player.
Yeah. And all the players you're getting on are on long term contracts.
Yeah,
So if you want to package them for a superstar that becomes available in a year or two, you have that option.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I love this trade. I think Miles Turner has to be moved, and I think he, like you said, he's the perfect fit for the Pelicans. So I
Yeah.
love this from the Pelican side. You got like Miles Turner, Zion, you got Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram. I think that fits better. I obviously Drew Holiday. I think he can fit on any team in the league, so that would probably hurt them in that way. But this just fits. This is better for Zion, and I think that's what their goal has to be right now.
And anyone else that's trying to get Drew Holiday is going to try to give you a pick. They think have the Pelicans have so much good players that are just not getting time. Like they have Nikhil Alexander-Walker who
Nikhil,
could step up. Josh Hart is off the
yeah,
bench. Like they have all these good players that could just get more minutes once Drew Holiday is gone. And they get a center, the position where they don't have any minutes because Derek Favors is off the books. And do you really have a center besides Derek Favors? Not really. So you get a 24-year-old too. People forget that. He
yeah.
fits perfectly the timeline. And that starting lineup of Lonzo Ball, I think Nikhil Alexander has to start at the two next season. Brandon Ingram, Zion, and Miles Turner.
I like it.
Man, I
I
like
really
getting
like
blocked
it.
too. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so we got one more trade, and this is another Timberwolves trade. Basically, if they decide that they don't like, uh, they don't see Anthony Edwards as the future second or third best player of the future, they try to land a third star that fits with their team right now, and that star is Zach LaVine. So it would be Zach LaVine and the number 4 pick, along with Cristiano Felicio, for the number 1 pick, obviously, Jarrett Culver, Josh Okogie, and James Johnson as filler.
Yeah, so basically the Bulls, they just got bodies. They get
Yeah,
Culver, they get Okogie, two young guys, put that with a young uh Kobe White, put that with a young Lowry Markkinen, put that with a young
Wendell
Anthony
Carter.
Edwards. Yeah, put that with a young Wendell Carter.
Yeah,
They just have now like 7, 8 guys who are young, good NBA players, and you want to see them in a rotation where they're like all getting ball, all getting touches,
yeah,
and they move on from Zach LaVine because they just don't believe he's going to re-sign in 2 years because his contract's only 2 years. They believe enough damage is done between the relationship
yeah.
with the past front office and past coaching, and they just think Anthony Edwards is that guy because if they really like, let's say a Denny Avije, they just stay at the four, pick him, run with the young core. But if they really think Anthony Edwards is going to be Dwayne Wade, like Anthony Edwards is calling himself,
Yeah.
then they do this trade.
I mean, Zach LaVine. I don't think Zach LaVine's actually that different of a player than what we think Anthony Edwards could be
Hmm.
in the future. And the case for, like you said, for the Bulls is he's not going to stay in 2 years. Um, and then the case for the Timberwolves is we haven't made the playoffs in forever.
Yeah,
Towns is young, but we can't just have another losing season where we're in the lottery again. We don't. That's just how. That's what. That's how stars start requesting trades. So That's the case for the Timberwolves. You get a third star. I don't know how good that team would be, but that would be a pretty exciting offensive team.
Yeah,
And
offense.
yeah, that would be a good
Yeah,
offensive team. I don't know if they make the playoffs in the West, but
uh,
I think that'd be a pretty fun team. They would definitely do better than if it was
just
this
a
season
pick.
if it was just the pick, just Edwards.
Yeah,
So that's the case for the Wolves.
yeah, they would have absolutely no defense.
Yeah.
a backcourt of a backcourt of
Oh my
D'Angelo
god.
Russell, Zach LaVine with the defensive anchor of Karl Anthony Towns, and a forward of Denny Avicii. Oh man, that defense, it's like Swiss cheese. But the good thing is, like, Zach LaVine is Karl Anthony Towns' friend. And if you just get enough of Karl Anthony Towns' friends,
Yeah.
maybe he's just happy. Maybe he's just happy playing basketball with his friends and living in Minnesota. Like, maybe he's just happy with it. And I guess that's your hope with that one.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, maybe that's what will save the team. You never
Yeah.
know. So that's all the trades we have. That was a lot. A lot of them were kind of complicated,
Hmm.
but I think at least a couple of these can happen and should happen. Really.
Yeah. And by the time, not our next podcast, probably not even the one after that,
Yeah.
but trades will happen
Yep.
before the draft. They always do.
Yep.
So we'll probably have one or two drafts to talk about. And there was another thing I wanted to mention, and that's Daryl Morey making over $10 million a year in the front office role.
Yeah,
And
man.
what does that mean for Masai Ujiri?
Masai Ujiri could end up being the highest paid executive in sports history very,
If
very
Daryl
soon.
Daryl Morey's making 5 years, he's getting more than 5 years, 60 mil. Like that was Phil Jackson's deal, and I said Morey's making more than Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
So obviously Masai hasn't re-signed yet. Us as Raptors fans, it's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah.
This is a $15 million deal that's going to come in for Masai Ujiri. It seems like,
Thank God it doesn't count towards the cap.
yeah,
That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah,
Insane.
it's insane.
So the draft is coming up really soon. Pretty much exactly 2 weeks from now. We're going to be coming out with a full mock draft next week. We did our top 3 prospects last week. We're going to do the mock draft next week and then final positions the day before the draft. So stay tuned for that. And if you liked what you heard, leave a comment, subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating. Everything helps. But other than that, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.